Hello, we are Eret again. Actually, we are five friends, but also now just we have three. We are continuing a genetic treatment study on retinitis pigmentosa. We are trying to introduce people to retinitis pigmentosa disease. It's important for us to listen to your experiences in this process. Uh, if you're okay, I would like to start with our first question. First of all, can you tell us briefly about yourself?
Yes, my site. So I have retinitis pigmentosa. I was diagnosed at the age of 12. I'm currently 40 years old, and I've been slowly losing my eyesight. It started with the night vision. So that's the first thing that was noticed by my parents is I couldn't see in dim lighting or if it was too dark. There needed to be enough contrast for me to see. So I couldn't see in dark lighting, and that lasted till about I was 25 maybe, and around 25 I started losing my sight during the day. So it was difficult for me to read regular text, just like a standard book. I wasn't able to read that anymore without magnifying glass. Um, and that's where it all started. I started losing that, and then eventually about 10 years later I started losing my peripheral vision. So I started seeing more out of a tunnel, which is how I see now. But not only do I see out of the tunnel's blurry. So I could see if I get close enough or if I am able to magnify it on a screen, but out in person, I have to get, very close to something to see. And I still don't see in dim lighting. Of course, that actually got a little bit worse because now I have some sensitivity to light. So my vision's a little complicated right now. If it's too bright outside because of the sun, my eyes bother me. It's hard to see. If it's too dim, it's hard to see. So it's a little hard to explain, but I hope that kind of covers my current eyesight.
Did you have anyone in your family with the disease? Like, have you ever heard about it before getting diagnosed?
I had never heard of retinitis pigmentosa. Nobody in my family has it. So I am the only one that has it that was diagnosed. My parents have not been tested, but one of them is a carrier. But both of my parents are still driving. They are still able to see. My mom wears glasses, but for something else, for stigmatism, nothing to do with RP. And my dad sees very well. So I am the only one that has it. I didn't meet actually anybody else that had RP until 2 years ago. So I went almost, the, this major part of my life without meeting anybody with RP. And now I have a lot of friends that have RP, and I'm able to relate to them and, understand what they're going through because, yeah, I didn't know anybody growing up.
So, you mentioned difficulties you faced when you were a child and when you were growing up about school and everything else, and like right now driving or like going out in the city walking. So, are there any helpful policies of the government or any foundations that have helped you or maybe can help you? Have you heard of them, or are there communities that you can join that help people in need? Like,
Yes, there's different communities. I would just recommend that anybody research their local community to see what resources they have because it's something that if I would have known I had it in my community, I would have started using it at the age of 12. But unfortunately, I just started using these resources like almost 3 years ago. So 2.5 years ago is when I realized that I am blind, and there's a center by my house that helps blind people adjust to daily living, how to use a mobility cane. So they were very helpful with that. And in those groups, I found other people that also have not only similar eyesight, but eventually I found somebody that has RP in my area, and that was the first person that I met that had it by going to these centers and these groups. Right now, I'm a part of 2 different groups. There's the Foundation Fighting Blindness. It's an organization that raises funding to help for clinical research for inherited degenerative diseases like retinitis pigmentosa. So that's where I first found so many people that have retinitis pigmentosa because, like them, I'm still waiting to see if there's a cure out there, to see what's new with technology. And that's a big organization that has a lot of information on their website to also help you understand what is RP, and what clinical trials are going on right now and different things like that. There's another organization that I just joined, I'm a member of, called National Federation for the Blind. I'm still learning a lot about them, and I will be going to their convention July 3rd through July 8th of this year. So I'm very excited to be going to that convention because there I'm going to learn a lot about how they help the visually impaired. So they're not directed specifically for RP, but they're more about what I could do now with my vision and um, how to get the necessities that I need and ask for the things that I need. So I'm looking forward to learning more about them.
Thank you for your answer. Uh, After this disease, what was changed in your life with disease? How did you deal with this? And also, could you give an advice to people newly diagnosed with this disease?
Yes. So it's in the beginning when I was 12 and I was told you have this rare eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa, and it has no cure, you're going to go blind. That was a little hard for me, but I also kind of ignored it because I didn't understand it. So it would have helped me to research it more and understand blindness. To me, at the age of 12, and even my parents didn't understand blindness, we I thought that blindness meant everything is pitch black. I cannot see anything, like a blindfold over my eyes. So I was kind of just not in denial, but just waiting to go completely pitch black blind. I didn't realize that blindness is a spectrum and that I was already going blind and that I was eventually considered legally blind, even though I could still see. So it was very hard because I thought I could still do certain things like drive and, um, you know, driving was the biggest one. So I thought I could still do these things like driving because I could still see something. In fact, it was the opposite because I was already going blind. So technically, I was supposed to stop driving and, um, move on to the next chapter of my life. So that was very hard adjusting to blindness, especially when I didn't know I was already going through it. Explaining to other people why I was bumping into things if we went to a restaurant, why I was bumping into the tables because I couldn't see in the lighting. And I struggled a lot with that. I struggled a lot with one of my favorite hobbies, which was drawing. I used to draw a lot as a child. So just with pencil or pen or colored pencils, I would draw portraits of people or portraits of animals. That was just what I loved to do. And when I tried to do that, I couldn't see the lines anymore for, on the on the paper. So I couldn't see that. And I gave up something that I loved to do for so long. And eventually, what I realized a few years ago is just a reminder to everybody is not to give up on what you love to do, but a reminder to learn to adjust to it. So, for example, now I paint, and um, that's my new hobby. Instead of drawing with pencil, now I paint with pen. Sometimes I use my fingers, sometimes I use thick brush. brushes because I could see the brush strokes now much better if I get up close. I also, instead of drawing on a small paper, I draw on large canvases because I could get closer and I could see the detail a little bit more. Um, so it was a big eye opener for me to realize that I can still create art. I just have to do it differently, just like I have to prepare my meals at home differently, just like I have to get to places differently. I cannot drive there, but I can get there with a ride, with local transportation for the blind and visually impaired. Um, just learning what works for you to adjust. I realize that we all have our different journeys. We all like different things. So just be as creative as you can. If it's something that you love to do, don't give up. Figure out how to do it differently. Sometimes it will take several years. For me, art took several years. Um, Driving took a few months for me to adjust to and transition to a new style of getting to places. So everything is different. Everything takes its time, but just have a positive mindset. Um, and learn to be thankful for everything that you have, and that will help you continue with this life versus feeling sad about your condition, feeling sad about the future. I don't think about um, what happens when I go fully blind, and I don't get into that mindset. I don't like to worry and think that way because it's not necessary. With RP, it could be a very slow transition to fully blind. You may never get there now, I realize. I might get there in 2 years. I never know. So I just try to live my life as positive as I can and try to do as much as I can. So that's just my recommendation to everybody, to have a positive mindset. And I recently created a website that was kind of like a journal for me, or not a journal, but a board for me to share my condition with others, because I went through a lot of shame telling people that I was going through vision loss. So I used my website as a tool to tell people I have retinitis pigmentosa, and this is what I can create and this is what I can still do. And in my blog, I write resources of things that are helpful for visually impaired people. And I also share my art on there. But I used it as a tool because it was hard for me to say out loud what I'm going through with vision loss. So, and that was me just getting creative and incorporating what I love to do of art and showing what I do with art, but writing a story behind it that involves my journey through vision loss. And I named it Unblurred Collection. So, unblurred to me was just a word I kind of came up with as a reminder to myself that sometimes with negativity, because I went through that where I just felt sorry for myself, I felt negative that, oh, people aren't going to want to spend time with me because I'm going through vision loss and I can't see, or they're not going to understand me, or I'm going to go blind, my life is over. All of that negativity sometimes comes to my head, and I have to, in my way, unblur all the negativity, all the fogginess, and just clear my mind and be positive and be thankful for what I have and what I can still do, and share with others how I do things, use, magnifying glasses and just different things like that. So to me, that word is unblurred, and it's just that reminder to be positive. So that's also why I came up with that, and why I like to share that with others to have that reminder.
Thank you for this beautiful answer. I think it's, like
You're
you said,
welcome.
absolutely valuable to destigmatize diseases or any other issue of such kind. And it's also very important to be able to find people to learn from, like your website. Do
Mhm.
you have any websites or sources you could recommend to people who have been recently diagnosed or don't know
Oh,
about
yeah.
their diseases or communities? Do you have any sources to recommend to these people?
Definitely. Fightblindness.org is the first one I recommend if you're fully diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. This is an organization that I'm a part of. I am the vice president for the local San Diego, California chapter. And what the organization does is it goes over, as I mentioned earlier, it goes over retinitis pigmentosa and other related conditions. But if you click under retinitis pigmentosa, it'll explain to you what it is, what it does, what clinical trials are out there, how to sign up to get a test done to see what mutation you have, because that's something also I didn't know prior to visiting their website. I didn't know that RP has, I want to say it's about 100 different mutations. So if you hear that, hey, there's a clinical trial for retinitis pigmentosa, I'm going to sign up for it. It's not that easy. You have to see which mutation this clinical trial is for, and do you have this mutation? So it's very important to do your research to get tested for your mutation, because you might not qualify for their clinical trials that are currently going on. So that's very important. There's also clinical trials going on that covers any mutation. So also very important to know that the difference between that. So that is the best website to keep up with retinitis pigmentosa and what's going out there. As far as organizations in people's areas, I would just recommend they research based on their current location to see what center has any services for the visually impaired blind, especially learning how to use a mobility cane, a white cane, because that's very helpful. Even if you think you don't need it, because for a long time I thought I didn't need it. It's very helpful to use the cane in public so that others can see that you're visually impaired and they understand that you may need extra assistance or something.
I would like to talk about what do you expect from the state from like as improvements, and what are the things that you really like that are being done worldwide or locally. So
Certainly. I'm lucky enough to live in a bigger city that has multiple centers that have these resources that are very helpful. Um, it, but that's in my state, so it just depends what state the person lives in. I know somebody that has a granddaughter that's going through vision loss in a different state, and they don't have any resources in their state, in their communities where they live, and they're really fighting to get some type of assistance, because those children are in grade school. I think they're about 10 years old, and they're really struggling with school and getting behind because the teachers don't understand what the child needs, and there isn't any community resource out there for children. So every state is definitely different. I wish we had something more uniform across the board that really understands the spectrum of blindness and the ages that it could start at, from from a young age of a young child to an older adult. And again, it just depends on the city. I feel what I've noticed is the bigger the city, the more resources they have, because a lot of these organizations, I'm sad to say, they're struggling because it's all funding that they receive from donations. A lot of them are not fully provided by the state, even here in California. So I have organizations that I'm a part of that taught me how to do so many things, and I feel sad for them sometimes because they're struggling to get funding to keep those programs going, and sometimes they have to cut these programs and no longer do some programs because they don't have somebody to volunteer. I'm noticing that a lot right now in some of the centers. one of the centers, they just told me yesterday that they had to cut the teacher that did sculpting and arts and crafts and a lifestyle class to do exercise because they don't have volunteers to go in and teach those things, and they cannot afford to pay somebody. So these organizations that help us so much, they're not provided much funding from the state, if any. It's from local people that want to give. And so just I would just hope that it was covered more by the government and not by local supporters that donate. And that would be everywhere, because I don't see the government really stepping in to do anything about that. We all have to find our own resources. And United States, we have National Federation for the Blind, and they help us understand what we need, how to get it, and they're there to help us, but they're also separate. They show us how to get what we need, but it's not something that's comes easy. Sometimes we got to do a lot of research and realize that, hey, I do have rights for this. Let me navigate and figure out how to do it. So it's hard. It's hard because especially with retinitis pigmentosa, that a lot of people don't know about it, and it's rare. It's something that you have to sometimes go to your county off your local office and explain to them what it is. And sometimes they don't want to help you because you're not completely blind, and they think, no, you're not blind. And you have to remind them, yes, I'm legally blind. I could still see, but I am considered disabled, and I do need resources for this. And so it's a lot of that, standing up for yourself and speaking out for yourself when you need something. Don't stay quiet, because if you stay quiet, the services are not going to come to you. I did that for a long time, and I was only getting behind, and um, it's not good to just wait for help. You have to really go out there and see what there is for you, especially with a disease that's not very visible, I would say. A lot of people have told me, even in public offices, well, you don't look blind, you don't look like you need help. And I went through a lot of that. And just a reminder to, if if anybody says that, I would just suggest using a cane so that they see you do struggle, and reminding them, I have this eye condition that I do struggle, even though it's not visible. Just advocating for yourself is the key, because we cannot wait for the state or the government right now to help us navigate this life with blindness. We got to go out there and see what's in our area.
Yeah, I'd like to ask about, like, how can people change how they act, or what can they do better and be more mindful about when interacting people with vision loss or in the streets? When they see a person with a cane, what should they do? What should they not do? And how can they improve themselves?
I've learned that they don't really have to do anything. If they see a person out in the street with a cane, so if they saw me out with a cane, they don't have to do anything unless they see I'm walking into traffic, or I look like I'm gonna fall, or I look like I'm walking into a tree, something that could be dangerous to me or to somebody else. But other than that, um, if we have a cane, we're trained to use it, and it feels good being independent. I've had people that have strangers that have grabbed me and said, "Oh, here, I'll help you." And that's something you don't want to do. Unless I ask for help. If I ask somebody, "Hey, I really cannot see, can you help me get to, you know, the entrance or something?" If they hold me by the shoulder or the elbow, that's very helpful, and I appreciate it. But if I don't ask for help, and I look like I'm walking okay in a straight line, um, you don't have to do anything, unless you really see the person struggle. If you really want to do something, you could watch and observe and make sure that person crosses the street safely or something. but technically, you're not required to do anything.
We would like to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to add about the disease, any message to the people out there, or anything else that you would still like to talk about.
Yes. So with this disease, I mentioned earlier that blindness is a spectrum, and it's something that I learned in my later years. Um, what I want to say is something that I really struggled with is using the cane. Even though I still have some sight, I oftentimes felt like I wasn't ready because I didn't see, fully pitch black. And I also felt kind of like a fraud because I thought, well, I could still see. Why am I going to use a cane? So I struggled a lot with that shame of using a mobility cane. And so I recently created some artwork that goes along with that journey to share with others. Um, just a journey of using the cane and learning when to unfold that cane and use it out in public with confidence. I partnered with Dave Steele. He's known as the Blind Poet. I highly recommend that. Um, and not just anybody with vision loss, but especially anybody with retinitis pigmentosa, listen to his poetry. He also has retinitis pigmentosa, and he understands the struggle. So he writes beautiful poetry about his journey with vision loss and RP, and telling people and how he felt when he was diagnosed, and um, the shame he had of using a mobility cane in person. So we partnered together to with my art and his poetry to create a beautiful collaboration to share with others that a lot of people go through this shame of using a cane, and it's okay at any age to use it in public, and you can feel confidence and you could trust your cane. And so that's something I really want to share with everybody that's not only has RP, but maybe their family member has RP, their friend, or they're studying RP and trying to understand what RP, how it affects people and what it does to someone. um, I highly recommend it, and I invite you to view that. Currently, I have it on my Instagram account, but if that's something that you could share with others, that would be great, to get the word out there of retinitis pigmentosa and using a cane.
Okay. Thank you for your answering our questions with us today. It's a very useful and beneficial interview for us. We plan to publish this interview with Turkish subtitles in a few days in our YouTube channel. We can share our links. We have more people become aware of RP. Thank you again. Thank you again for everything. I hope you will be okay, and you will have a good day for today.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. And I really appreciate this interview because I know it's going to help somebody out there. And that's what I really want, is just to have others understand vision loss. And my RP may be different from somebody else's. I realize that some of us are very different. So thank you for learning about me and getting to know my journey with retinitis pigmentosa. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for all the knowledge you shared with us and all your experiences. It was very beautiful to hear about all of it.
Of course. I looking forward to see what you do with your project, and thank you. Thank you again.
And have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, you
again.
too. Have a great evening.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.